What's up, everybody? People are joining right now at NBA draft tomorrow. This is the daily Wolves Courtside. This is a bonus episode. We're giving you an NBA draft preview, and I got somebody on who hasn't been on the show in a long time, Mr. Zach Rudin. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. Pretty pumped up for the draft tomorrow. It's always one of the best days of the year in the NBA draft world, and we've already got some trades going on now too, so it's a good time.
Kristaps Porzingis just got traded probably a few minutes ago while we're on here. We saw Drew Holiday get moved last night, Kevin Durant in the last week. Like you said, everything's shifting. It's a crazy time, and you can't expect it to just be that. We know how draft night works. There's going to be trades all around the league, players or teams trading up. There's going to be other players involved in trade. I feel like there's always a star somewhere as well that shocks everybody. So we'll see kind of like what happens tomorrow night. The Timberwolves, they're in an interesting spot. Before we get going, Zach, where can they find you on your social media to give you a follow, man?
Yeah, I'm big on Instagram with T-Wolves Country. That's mainly where my work does, and then I do some Timberwolves stuff for sure on my Twitter, Zach Rudine, but that's also for some NBA draft content in general, and just put out a Wolves draft guide on there too, for people to check out. So yeah.
Okay, let's dive into it, man. You know where to follow him, guys. Definitely give him a follow for awesome NBA content. Zach dives super deep into the draft, more than most people I see around Wolves social media. So this is one of the reasons I was really excited to have him on our show today, just to talk about who Minnesota could pick at 17. We know they have pick 31 as well. Will they trade the picks? We'll get into that in the show. But first, let's say we're on the board at pick 17, Zach. Let's go through some of our guys as GMs here. Starting off Minnesota and their needs. I think they have to address the big position, right? I mean, Rudy Gobert, we know he's getting older. We know his contract. He's got a few years left on it. And I feel like Minnesota knows that Rudy Gobert is at that point where he could be declining. So if that's the case, Minnesota might go to address the big position. Who's a big on your board that Minnesota could have come in, draft at 17, and maybe learn under Rudy Gobert as the future big in Minnesota?
Yeah, for me and a lot of Wolves fans at this point, it's Thomas Sorber, a big man, freshman out of Georgetown, somebody who has like real two-way potential. I don't love doing like player comparisons when it comes to prospects, but I do
Mhm.
like an Isaiah Hartenstein level comparison for him. Um, Sorber is a 6'10" big. He's a little bit smaller, but he's super long. He's got a +8 wingspan. Phenomenal drop coverage defender. That's something that Gobert could, talk to him a lot about, be a mentor with. Just block shots and just as a defensive playmaker in general. 3.5 stocks per game. And he's a really intriguing offensive player with the passing ability.
Mhm.
He, like with Georgetown this past season, there was a lot of times where he'd be a zone breaker at the top of the key and just find guys on, hit ahead passes. He could pass from the low post. He can score on the post with good footwork. I see a lot of two-way upside here with Sorber, and he feels like a Tim Connolly guy because the thing with Sorber is he just has crazy feel for both
Yep.
ends of the court. He's a great defender that doesn't foul a lot, which is pretty crazy for his age, and he just has a really good feel for the offensive side, good handle as well.
For Thomas Sorber, what I feel like sometimes Sorber, he's a fantastic defender, like you said. He's a guy that's going to come in right away and make an impact. His offensive game, that's a little bit, I feel like he's not a big shooter. And he catches the ball into the hoop. He goes up. He does a lot of things Rudy Gobert does when he scores. Really, he can catch the lob pass. He can dunk it. Not much of a jump shooter, not a 3-point shooter. Does that worry you about Thomas Sorber, or we just haven't seen it, man?
No, I mean the 3-point shooting really isn't there. He did have like some flashes of just like making jumpers, specifically the Providence game. The first half made like 4 jumpers there. So there's some sample there, more than Gobert at least. But he's just on a completely different level when it comes to coordination, handle, and just overall feel for the game. Like he's not a super athletic dude, which is one of the maybe more cons for his game, but he completely makes up for that
Mm-hmm.
with his ability to just catch the ball every time and be a good post skill work guy, good handle for the size, and just overall the feel on that side of the court is a lot different than a guy like Gobert.
I think what Thomas Sorber, if you go look up film on him, guys, like Zach saying, he's not the best athlete in impact of just lateral movement, super quick as some bigs are, but he makes up on it, kind of like Rudy Gobert with just the way he moves his hips, the way he turns his hips, the way he positions his body, the way he angles off people and forces the offensive player into certain shots that he wants them to take. And then he recovers well. As, like you said, fantastic at getting blocks per game. He's long. I just think his IQ in the defensive end is so high. And the one thing I know you're getting out of Thomas Sorber, if you're a Timberwolves fan, is you're going to get a guy who has an elite floor. He's going to come in and he's going to make an impact on day one. I think he's going to be ready to go, and he's not going to make a ton of mistakes. And I think that's something that Chris Finch would value. And we've seen it with this team. That's kind of why Rob Dillingham didn't play as much. Chris Finch values players that can come in and make an impact right away. Just do what they ask, do what they're good at. I think Thomas Sorber is a guy that can catch those passes, like you said, not bobble it like Rudy Gobert does sometimes. And I just think in a weird way, they're kind of similar in certain ways. And so I just think learning under one of the best defensive players to ever play the game at the center position, that's amazing for Thomas Sorber. And hopefully that's something Minnesota can get going. We have a comment here that what moves are we making, Enrique? We are going to get into that later on if we end up making moves or what we think as well. But we're going to stick to some guys real quick. What's another guy who you got on your draft board at 17, Zach, that you want to move on to next?
Yeah, Neat Clifford would be my next guy in line here. Some of the maybe concern right away from just the surface level is the age. He's 23 years old. We did see a guy like Terrence Shannon Jr. come in around the similar age this year. I don't care about the age at that much because of how good he is at basketball and just what he brings. He kind of just brings what I feel like Minnesota needs at a high level, and it's the shot creation. He's a really good three-level scorer, gets to his spots with a good first step. I love the secondary passing with him. He's a really smart passer, so he can absolutely play with the ball in his hands, work it to other guys. But it's really just the scoring off the dribble, the ability to draw on defenses, stuff like that we saw in the Western Conference Finals. It was basically Anthony Edwards doing that, and everything else was super inconsistent. Like you get some moments from Randall and Jaden, but other than that, it's just there's not a lot of it on the roster. Like Nikhil had a good series when it came to that, actually. But a guy like Neat Clifford, who's a solid wing size at 6'6", projects to be a really solid defender as well, especially in a lower usage offensive role. Just somebody that can get buckets at a super high level. What he does is really projectable to the NBA. He was, I don't remember the efficiency being awesome in the NCAA tournament, but he was getting to his spots super well against a team like Maryland. So it translated against the highest, competition. But dude's just gonna be a bucket getter.
I love Nate Clifford. I think I have Clifford high on my draft board for the Timberwolves, more than probably a typical person would have him. I think what you're getting with Nate Clifford is, again, with Minnesota being a playoff team, by being a Western Conference finalist, by being ranked going number 2 on ESPN projected power rankings in the NBA. They're ranked number 2 going into this season on the early power rankings for those who saw that the other day. I think you're looking for a player who can come in, slot in, and make an impact immediately. Like you said, Terrence Shannon Jr. last year, 23 years old, he did that. Nate Clifford looks like he could come in and he's ready to play. His body's already there. He's a bigger guy. I love his shooting ability. A little bit streaky from 3, but I think he has a really good stroke from the 3-point line if you go look up tape on him. And I think he has a potential, if he hits and that 3 ball becomes something he can develop in the pros, he's going to be an elite player. This guy can defend, and he can defend multiple positions. I think he'd be a great addition. I can just see Minnesota going after a guy like that. Clifford, again, can slot in from day one. I think he's somebody that will have a huge summer league out of a lot of players in there and rookies, just because I think he's just got so much experience coming out of Colorado. Nate Clifford, he interests me a ton. I think I had a guy that we'll talk about as my number 1 guy. I think I had Clifford at 3, probably 3 or 4, who I would take for Minnesota. He's not a big by any means, but again, does a lot of the little things, has a good pull up. He can drive in. He has solid playmaking as well. I just think Clifford is, or Nate Clifford is just like a fantastic all-around role player. When you're drafting Nate Clifford, look at him as a role player. We're not drafting a star upside. We're drafting somebody who can fill in for the future off the bench, be solid, or hopefully even develop into a really good starting level guy in the NBA. Who else you got, man, on your board?
Oh, yeah. Another name is Rasheed Fleming from St. Joseph.
Okay, yeah.
He's a I mean, the thing that just stands out right away is the length with him at the power forward position in the NBA. He's 6'9" and had like a 7'5" wingspan or something. It was like the fourth biggest of the combine, which is ridiculous.
Yep.
But I mean, like just insane frame is kind of the big selling point right away. And then he's a good athlete, a good defender overall, defensive playmaker, somebody that really bothers people with that size and athleticism. And then the offensive sell is he's a pretty good 3-point shooter. I can't remember the exact number. I think it was 39% this past year, but he's really developed as a shooter over his career. We'll see how well.
39% from three for,
Yeah,
I mean, he's awesome, man.
we'll see if it completely sticks because this was his first year in his whole career of like really shooting it well. But the optimism is it's continued to grow. Like record wise, I look back at it, it continues to go up every year. So he's probably just became a good shooter at this point. um, but the thing he probably does best on offense is just like the cutting and off ball stuff. Like he's not somebody that can handle the basketball or play make for others,
Mm-hmm.
but he can really cut to the basket. He's a really athletic finisher. He's a big transition threat as well. That's where his handle's a little more functional. But yeah, I think this is a prototypical high level potential 3-and-D guy. And at that size, Minnesota doesn't really have anybody in the roster. I think that the coaching staff tried to make Jaden that over the years when Jaden is much more of a capable, like, scorer with the ball in his hands in the short mid range and get to the basket type guy instead of a
Mm-hmm.
3-point shooter. But Fleming is probably what you wanted Jaden to be more so, ideally, as just a pure 3-and-D dude.
Yeah, I think Matt's not on the show tonight, but he has Fleming, I think, is his number one player coming out of the draft for the Timberwolves here. So shout out to Matt, one of our co-hosts. But Rasheed Fleming, 6'9". So he's about the height of like Nas Reed, maybe like Bam from Miami, to give you guys a comparison of his height. So not quite like a typical 7-foot big, but definitely not a small guy by any means. Already at 232 pounds coming in the draft, 7'5" wingspan for Fleming. So just like you said, incredible defensive potential. He's a maniac on that end. Unreal. If you have not watched Rasheed Fleming film, it is so fun to watch because you can just see him slotting in with Minnesota on day one and really making an impact in the future when Minnesota, has less depth in the bigs. He's 15 points per game last year, 8 rebounds while shooting 39% from three. Again, 39% from three is fantastic. Spread the floor and do all those things. Yeah, he is a good shooter at this rate. I think it's going to translate. And that's something Minnesota desperately needs. They need guys who can spread the floor. They're losing Nickeil Alexander-Walker, most likely, another guy who's a 3-point shooter. So Minnesota needs everything set up for the future. He moves, and it reminds me so much about like how Nas Reed moves. Now, different, like you said, not the handles there like Nas Reed, but just the way certain things he does on film. He kind of reminds me of Nas Reed's body, and more like when Nas Reed came in the league, he was a little bit heavier. But I just think he has this upside to be a fantastic defender. Again, I feel like I know what I'm getting. This seems like it's a common theme, Zach. These guys have amazing floors that we're talking about so far. They might not be the superstar upside, but I think they're coming in and they can slot in with the playoff rotation right away. Who's another guy you got on your board, man?
Cedric Coward from Washington State. He was a big draft riser. The thing with Coward was he freshman year of college he was D3. Then he plays 3 years at D1 level basketball. Then he goes to Duke for he didn't go to Duke. He committed to Duke when he became this insane combine riser, largely because they saw this dude had like a freaking +8 wingspan.
Yep.
Like the sell with Coward is he has probably the best frame of any winger forward in the class, and he's going to grow into that a lot. On top of that, electric shooter, that's the high level skill for him. Just the shooting, the mechanics are so pure. He has some like mid-range game similar to like Mikal Bridges, if like just like the shoulder bumping and stuff like that. I think his frame is kind of similar to Bridges as well. But good on and off the ball defender. Track record versus high level opponents, not the best. So we'll see if that's an adjustment at anything. But like frame wise and like he's got some high level skills. Like this is a dude that's going to get lottery looks, and I'm interested to see if he falls
Yeah.
17 for the Timberwolves. Pretty crazy to see a guy rise that much to the combine. But yeah, this is a really projectable, high level, just off the basketball score in the NBA.
It's weird because for those watching right now, I have Cedric Coward as my number one player coming out of the draft. Just for myself, I just think for a player that would be available at 17, he's around that vicinity. I think he gets taken higher than 17. I think a team is going to go get him just because I think he's that special of a player. I compare him to Jalen Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder coming out of the draft out of Santa Clara. A lot of similar things with wingspan, a lot of things I see how the way they move, their body, the way they score, the way they defend. Kind of an all around different player. 18 points a game for Cedric Coward this year, 7 rebounds, nearly 4 assists and 1.7 blocks. So again, just an all-around player, and I just see so much of J Dub's game in Cedric Coward. That might be a crazy take, but I was really high on Jalen Williams coming out of the draft out of Santa Clara, and he got taken a little bit higher in the draft that year. I actually wanted Minnesota to go for him, so I think if he falls, you got to take him. I'm not sure Minnesota would trade up to get him just because of his positioning, but I would. I would take a swing on him, 6'6" with a 7'2" wingspan, 213 pounds, not a small guy by any means. I think Cedric Coward, he's going to be something in the NBA, and I think he has the potential to have a higher upside to be a starter level player, or even potentially higher than that. And I think that's something that I would be willing to bet on if I was Tim Conley. Package 31, 17. I would go up and get Coward, but that's my opinion. I'm just super high on him as a player. But yeah, man, who else you got on your board?
Oh yeah, we got some like uh guys that you see mocked a lot, like Danny Wolf to the team. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like Danny Wolf is like maybe the most popular like mock draft player to the Wolves. Super like weird, unique player. He's 7 foot tall, power forward, center. Don't really know the NBA position right now. I'd prefer power forward probably because don't love the defense. So I'd kind of hide that a little bit better there. um, but he's like this freakish playmaker at 7 foot. Like you can just run like pick and roll actions through him. You can run double big actions through him. He makes a lot of really creative passes off live dribbles, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some turnover issues there, but like the dude has this insane skill set that is so unique for a guy that size. Like it's I don't know if there's another dude in the league that really does it the way he does it. Like you can say Jokic, but they kind of do different ways. Um, the downsides with Wolf, still love the defense. Um, I do like the off the dribble shooting. That's one of the positives. But on top of the defense, doesn't really play with physicality. I'm trying to think of other stuff I had in my notes, but it's mainly that type of stuff. Doesn't love to draw contact at a high level. He doesn't really play like a big, I guess is what it is. That's
Mm-hmm.
why I prefer the power forward spot. But if Minnesota drafts him, that's a super unique guy with some interesting skill sets.
I think Wolf might fall down farther than 17, but I also think Minnesota, notoriously with Tim Conley, he's not scared to take a swing and go get his guy if he thinks a guy is, or let's say a guy is ranked, 23rd or 25th on the draft board, and he's not scared to go up and get him higher up. I feel like that's just Tim Conley. He takes picks that we don't always see coming. So I think Minnesota is going to do nothing different in this draft. I think they're going to and probably take a player that we might not even be talking about right now. So it should be exciting tomorrow, man. Do you have what do you think of like Derrick Queen? I know a lot of people want Minnesota to potentially trade up if Derrick Queen's available. I'm kind of out on Derrick Queen, and it's probably like a hot take. I think Derrick Queen's a fantastic facilitator, but I don't like the defense at all. And just from what I've seen, I don't know. I'm kind of out on Derrick Queen. Might be a hot take. What do you think about Derrick Queen?
I probably would not be willing to invest the assets it would take to trade up for him
Mm-hmm.
because you're talking 17-31 and then like
Probably
I wouldn't
something
really
else too.
I mean it's
Depends on
probably
what.
like Terrence Shannon Jr. or something. I don't know. Like to get to where he's really gonna be drafted, maybe it's not that, maybe it's like just a handful of like seconds. But I mean, that's if Derek Queen falls to like 10, which very
Yep.
possible. But I don't know. My thing is with those guys that aren't like, there's some people that have Derek Queen top five on their board. That's completely fine. But for somebody like me who doesn't have Derek Queen top five on my board, I just don't understand. I don't love taking a guy that I have to build my team around to fit him and accompany
Yep.
his needs more because he's a 6'10" big that has this unbelievable skill set as a scorer, but he can't shoot it right now, and the defense just isn't very good. I
It's
think
horrible.
he I think he has to become a 4 in the NBA probably because I mean he's a really bad athlete. Like we talk about Sorber like not being a great athlete. Like Derrick Queen for whatever it's worth, he had the worst vertical at the combine, I believe. But you can just see he plays with that as well. He's not a vertical athlete at all. He's below the rim finisher. So I think he has to be a 4 long term, and he can't really shoot right now, and he's still not a great defender there. So you have to have a stretch big there. Minnesota does not have a stretch big, or they do have a stretch big in Naz Reid, but a Derrick Queen, Naz Reid front court can't exist there. The offense would be pretty sweet, but in high level playoff moments, if you're really like the idea with Queen is if you're investing all these assets in him, you're hoping that the dude is able to play in big playoff moments and close games and stuff like that. Um, I don't really think that would work with Nas Reed specifically too. Like he probably
Yep.
needs he needs to be like next to a guy like Victor Wembanyama who can just
Yeah, he
rip
needs a
10 threes
defender
a
by
game.
him, right?
Yeah. Like and can be a legit 3 and D guy.
Hmm.
So no, I'm not like there with Derrick Queen. I think there's much better fits in the league for him. But for Minnesota specifically, I would not be a fan. Unless he just like fell to 17, that'd be cool.
Right. I mean, at 17, it's questionable then what you do there. Maybe you take him, but I don't even know. I'm still kind of not even. I feel like if he was there at 17, I was the GM. I don't even think I'd take Derrick Queen. I think I'm out completely on Derrick Queen just by like the fit of Minnesota and what I feel like they need. Uh, Honorable shout out to Colin Murray Boyles too. I think he solid defensive player could come in, and that's another player who's going to get taken. I think a little bit higher, and you might have to go up and get him. I don't know. I don't think he's worth going up and go get. But if he were to fall, I wouldn't be, mad if Minnesota took a swing on him as well.
Yeah, another like particular team fit guy. Like I've heard like scouts say if Murray Boyles is either like 4th on your board or he's like 18th.
Yeah.
He's probably close to the 18 for Minnesota. He's like he's 6'7" and his best position in the NBA is probably center. Like he has like crazy feel for the game on both sides. That's the sell with him. Like he's legitimately like I'm confident that he's gonna be able to guard centers in the NBA because he's like
Yep.
his superpower is strength,
Because
and
he's
that's
what,
a
six
really
seven, right? He's like, I think
yeah.
he's 6'7", right?
Like his superpower is strength, and I think that's a really underrated trait and how impactful that can be. Like he just doesn't get pushed around or back down. He's a longer dude too. I think he's like 7'1" wingspan, so he got +6 wingspan. Um, but that's just probably not what Minnesota's looking for right now. Post scorer, not a shooter either. Like can't really shoot, but yeah, I probably would not be willing to invest assets to go get him.
What about, okay, so people are asking now in the chat that have been earlier. We've seen some people commenting, what do we think Minnesota's going to do? They're going to make a move. What do you feel like your gut's telling you on draft night? Do you think Minnesota drafts at 17 and 31? Do you think they make a trade for something? Is it going to be just moving up or down? Or is it for like a different player around the league? What's your kind of feel, Zach? What do you predict is going to happen?
Has Tim Connolly ever stayed at the spot where he was supposed to draft? I don't really.
Picked 27 last year, right? He
Yeah,
stayed there for TJ, but doesn't
that's
really stay anywhere.
yeah. Like he usually moves around, and he has a lot of reason to do that. I wouldn't like really hate like using 2 picks if you can get a really good guy at 31 that makes sense to have. But I think it does make more sense to consolidate those assets and go from 17 and get to like 14 or something and get the guy you really want because we already have Dillingham, Shannon Jr., Clark. Some could
Hmm.
even throw Minot in there as
Hmm.
guys like that we want to get in the rotation. And we might not even be able to get all 3 of those guys in rotation next year, especially if we manage to keep a Nikhil Alexander-Walker around. If we somehow bring back Randall and Nas, or even just one of them, which is very likely that we do, like there's not a lot of room for those guys to come in already. So are we really going to give 2 more guaranteed deals to 2 more rookies?
Hmm.
So, I mean, we'll see when it comes to that. I think it's pretty funny from back in 2022 about how down people were on the team's future. And now we have an issue where we have probably too many potential young assets, and we have our first round pick next year too. So I don't know. It's a good problem to have, but yeah, I would assume that they try to consolidate the picks and get up to the guy they want.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't think that you know, Minnesota's going to draft both picks tomorrow. I don't see it happening. I think pick 31, it's going to get moved, whether it's um, Minnesota trading it for a future first round pick, get an asset that you can move in a future year or a future deal, or it's going to be like you said, packaging 31 and 17 to go move up and get a guy they really want. I just think we've seen Tim. We see how he moves. He's an aggressive GM. I think somebody's going to fall in the draft that's unexpected too. Someone might be there, and I would put money on the fact that Minnesota's not drafting two players tomorrow night. I also think Minnesota needs a ball handler. I still think they're looking for a ball handler. I don't know if they would be able to address it tomorrow night by like trading for a current NBA player, someone out there, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happened as well. Sneaky random wild card. I got Walter Clayton Jr. that I want to throw out there is just like a random flyer wild card guard that could just be picked by Minnesota. And I don't have too much to say into that because I'm not going to dive into it because I feel like it's unrealistic to an extent. But Walter Clayton Jr. is a guy that obviously was, one of the most outstanding players in college basketball in March Madness, helped Florida really make that magical run there. But I think he could come in, and if you just want a guy to be a scorer off the bench, play make a little bit, Walter Clayton Jr. is a guy who he's a veteran, could come in and do that. It'll be fun, man. It'll be fun to see, what they do and everything like that. Someone in the chat says, did we see that Jokic might be traded? Yeah, I don't know if I believe that. I feel like that's all talk right now, but we did see that stuff. Yeah, I don't really think
Their
anyone's.
owner? Was that their owner saying that?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it was the owner in that press.
that was ridiculous. I don't know why he would ever say that.
Yeah, I just
Like the second aprons should never be the reason why you trade the best player in the world. But hey, we'll see what happens. Trade him to the East, man. Get some talent over there, please. Oh my
right, man.
gosh.
Yeah, but I guess we'll just see, man. Like I said, you never know with Tim Conley. Every time you don't expect something, he does the magical. Last year in the draft, he traded up out of nowhere to get Rob Dillingham and pick 8. I expect Minnesota to do something tomorrow. We're going to be covering every single thing with the Daily Wolves. You can follow us on different social media platforms. As you see on your screen, we have different socials on there. We're on Apple as well as Spotify. So check out the Daily Wolves podcasts on there. We're also on YouTube, guys. And then Zach, give him a follow around his socials as well. T-Wolves Country on Instagram. Zach, it's been awesome having you on, man. Always good time talking hoops, brother.
Yeah, thanks, man, for having me on.
We're going to take off, guys. I appreciate everyone for joining. Appreciate you guys for participating in the chat. Until next time, as always, go Wolves.